Hello, my dear students. Let us continue with the chapter Typical Configuration of Computer System. In our previous video, we have discussed about what is bus, the types of bus, that is internal and the external bus. What is the internal bus is also called as the system bus. What are the types of system bus, that is the data bus, address bus and the control bus we have discussed, and we have already begin with the memory part, isn't it? And then we have also seen what is the internal memory, and we have also discussed about the memory accessing levels of the processor, that is the registers, cache, okay, main memory, that is the random access memory, hard disk and the magnetic tape. We have seen the access levels of the process, which is the fastest which provides the data to the CPU is the registers, and which is the slowest is the secondary storage device, that is magnetic tape. And in terms of memory storage capacity, we have huge amount of data can be stored in the secondary storage device comparatively to the internal memory, that is registers, cache and the random access memory, isn't it? Now today let us discuss about the further topics, that is our mainly the memory unit has been divided into two types, that is the primary memory and the secondary memory. We shall discuss about the primary memory. The primary memory is also called as the main memory or the internal memory. This actually we have already discussed when I was discussing about the block diagram of computer. So but still, as it's a part of your concept here memory, again I'll be discussing. Okay, so primary memory, it is also called as main memory or the internal memory. So what kind of data will be stored into the primary memory? Means it stores the programs, data that are being currently needed by the CPU for the processing purpose. So this size of the primary memory is usually small whenever we compare it to the secondary memory because of its capacity. Okay, because of its capacity they are very expensive also, but they are small comparatively in terms of the storage. Okay, say for example, what are the internal memory of your internal memory of your computers are the registers. It might be the cache memory, and it might be the primary memory like random access memory and read only memory, and the internal hard disk. All these memory are having less storage capacity. In order to have the backup or in order to store the data permanently for a later purpose, then we need to depend upon the secondary storage devices. For example, in the class, in a regular college classes, you are, whenever the lecture was being delivered, you are able to store the data. Whenever we will be explaining, you are able to store the data, that is temporary storage. Your capacity of listening capacity or hearing capacity is quite less. That is the reason any important question or any important point, if we say, you start noting it down, that whatever the book you are using, it is acting as a secondary storage devices, which we will be able to save the data for the longer period of a time, and it will be a kind of permanent storage. Why you are going for secondary storage? Because you think that you might not remember whatever is being told in your right now. Right now you may remember the concept, but you may feel that later I may forget it. That's a temporary memory. Similarly, the computer also, in computer, the primary memory or the main memory or the internal memory capacity will be very less. That is the reason why we might have to go for the secondary storage devices, like it might be the external hard disk, it might be the pen drives, it might be the card readers, okay, it might be the CD, okay, that is the compact disc, it might be the DVD. So these are all coming under the secondary storage devices. Okay, then see, CPU actually communicates directly only with the main memory. CPU will never directly communicate with the secondary storage devices for the processing. They always go for they will directly communicate with the main memory, as the CPU works at a very high speed, we know. Okay, in terms of nanoseconds, picoseconds, such a fast they are able to execute the instructions. So then it should also have its matching memory, must be very fast. See, how fast you provide the data transfer to your processor, so fast your processor will execute the instructions. Okay, so then only the primary memory devices can provide that matching speed, comparatively the secondary storage devices. The data transfer rate compares comparatively to the primary memory, the secondary storage are very slow in data transferring. Primary are very fast in data transferring. In terms of nanoseconds, they are transferring the data for the CPU for the processing purpose. Okay, then our primary memory is mainly divided into two types of memory, that is the random access memory and the read only memory. What kind of contents exactly the random access memory is holding? I'll give an example. Okay, when you on your computer system, isn't it your operating system is getting loaded into the from read only memory to the random access memory? It will get loaded through the BIOS chip. We have already discussed about the BIOS. Then what kind of data will that means the operating system, the booting firmware kinds of programs will be stored in the read only memory. Then what kind of data has been stored in the random access memory? Think that you have on your computer system, operating system is got loaded. Then you might have open any one of the application. You might open the Chrome as an application. It's a browser, right? You might open that Chrome and you may surf the internet for certain period of time, and you may close that application. During this process, what happens, once you try to open that Chrome, operating system will get to know that you are trying to open that application software. Then it will load that application software into the random access memory. Once that application software is loaded in the random access memory, then you are able to open the Chrome. Then you may surf for 2 to 3 hours and you may close that application. Once you close the application, this application's application Chrome will not get erased in the random access memory. It will be there in the random access memory until and unless you turn off the computer system. Once you turn off the computer system, then whatever the content has been there in the random access memory will be completely erased. Until that, the Chrome application will be there in the random access memory, though you are not manually using it. One more example I'll be giving you. You might open that Chrome and you work it and you close it. Later you might open the C, you may open the Turbo C and you might execute certain 2 to 3 programs you may execute. At the time of program execution, whatever the memory allocation takes place depending upon the data type, whatever the integer values, floating value, whatever it might be, 12 bytes of data you have used, okay, 12 bytes of memory. All that data will be stored again in the random access memory along with that application software. That means what I'm trying to tell you is, currently whatever the programs, data, instructions that are going to be used by the processor for the processing purpose, such kind of data will be stored in the random access memory, and it will be stored in that until and unless you off the power supply. Then once you off the power supply, then the entire contents from the random access memory will be completely erased. Okay, so just I'll be briefing you. Random access memory is a temporary, it will store the computer operating system. Okay, it will store the application programs, as I said, as the Chrome, and it also stores the current data so that the processor can reach them quickly. So this random access memory is a kind of faster memory and it is volatile in nature. As I said, is when the power is switched off, the data in this memory will be completely lost. Okay, then what exactly the read-only memory is? Read-only memory is also a form of memory only. You can see here. This is the RAM slot. I think you have this RAM slot I have already shown you. This is how the read-only memory. This is the read-only memory chip that has been mounted onto the IC. This is the integrated circuit, isn't it? See, this is the IC. This is the read-only memory chip that has been mounted onto your motherboard. Then what kind of information it is storing? It stores the boot firmware called as the BIOS. Okay, so that hold the enough information to enable the computer to check its hardware, and it loads its operating system into the random access memory at the time of system booting, or means at the time of when the computer starts. So usually the operating system, such kinds of data will be stored in the read only memory. That is nothing but boot format. Booting in the sense what? The process of starting the computer is said to be as booting, isn't it? Now this read only memory is the non-volatile in nature. That means even when the computer has been switched off, the contents of the read only memory remains available. That means that is the reason when how many number of times you on the computer system, so many number of times here the operating system will be loaded, because it is non-volatile in nature, which is the read only memory type. I hope you are able to understand. Now when I say about the random access memory, isn't it I will be talking about the memory locations like this. Yeah, this is nothing but the memory. This is how the data will be stored in the that is in the random access memory. So here this one, each cell, it is having thousands of cell. Now each cell is nothing but called as the storage location. This cell is actually being made up of the capacitors and the transistor. Okay, each memory cell being, actually it is made up of the capacitor and the transistors, and that is capable of storing only one bit of data. That means one capacitor and one transistor can only store only one bit of data. One bit of data means what? Either 1 or 0 it can store. Okay, if I want to store the data of 1 byte of data, if I want to store, then I need 8 capacitors. That means what I am trying to tell is each memory cell is being made up of the capacitors and the transistor. One memory cell can hold only single bit of data. Okay, if I want to store 1 byte of data, 1 byte means how many bits? 8 bits. If I want to store 8 bits into it, then I need 8 capacitor. If I have thousands of memory locations, then I need to have the millions of capacitors and transistors. Understood? So I'll show you here so that you can clearly understand. See here, in random access memory, each memory cell is being made up. Each memory cell is being made up of this capacitor. This is capacitor and this is the transistors. So they are made up of the capacitors and the transistor in order to make a memory cell, okay, which represents a single bit of data. Only one bit of a data you can store by using the single capacitors and the transistor. If I want to have 1 byte of information to be stored, then I usually need how many? 8 capacitors. If I want to store 4 megabytes of MB data, if I want to store, then I need to have 33.5 million capacitor. So what I'm trying to tell is your memory locations are being made up by the capacitors and the transistors. Now why I am telling about capacitors and transistor? Because it is being needed to understand about the one of the type of random access memory, that is the dynamic random access memory. Okay, now before to that, this is how the random access memory slot will look like, and this is the slot where I am actually, this is the memory slots. Okay, in the memory slots I am able to mount the RAM slots. Now this is where, this is the read only memory chip. Through the BIOS I am able to access the operating system through the BIOS chip. That BIOS chip will load that operating system into the primary memory. I hope you are able to understand. Now we have the different types of random access memory we are having. The first one is the dynamic random access memory, and again we have to study that is the static random access memory. Okay, we have two types of memory, that is dynamic random access memory and the static random access memory. First we are going to discuss about the DRAM. DRAM actually stands for the dynamic random access memory. So it whether any type of memory slot, usually the memory needs constant electric power supply. It actually needs the constant electrical power in order to store the data. Once the power supply is been offed, then the contents in this random access memory will be completely erased. Okay, so this dynamic random access, this is the slot, this dynamic random access memory, it is also one of the main memory. Okay, it makes use of the transistors as well as the capacitors. Here I am able to show only the capacitors. Here I have already shown you the transistor. So usually DRAM makes use of the transistors as well as the capacitors, where the transistors are being arranged in terms of matrix of rows and columns, and capacitors usually has the electricity. See, these capacitors are always have the electricity. It makes use of the electricity in order to hold the bits of information, zeros and ones. Now the transistors will be acting as the switch. Okay, transistors will be these transistors will be acting as the switch that will allow the control circuit in order to read the data from this capacitor. Capacitors will be actually holding the data in terms of zeros and ones. Okay, because this dynamic random access memory use the capacitor, they have to be constantly refreshed. They have to constantly refreshed by using the electricity constantly. That is the reason we are telling that it should get constantly refreshed. Because capacitors do not hold the charge for the very long, that is the nature. Usually capacitors cannot hold the data for a long period of time. They will start constantly leaking. That means they will start constantly losing the contents within this. That is the reason we need to refresh constantly these capacitors. That is why we have given the name as the dynamic random access memory. Why we are not calling it as simply random access memory? Because why we are calling this as the name as DRAM or the dynamic random access memory? Because we are using the capacitors here. Capacitors are the ones who are holding the data in terms of zeros and ones by using the electricity. They need to constantly, they have to be refreshed. That refreshing will be automatically, it will occur after every 1000 times per second. We will not get to know. So within the internal computer memory itself, these capacitor will be constantly getting refreshed after every 1000 times per second. So if these DRAM has to be refreshed continuously in order to store the information, otherwise they will start losing the contents, whatever the data it is holding. So this DRAM, it is quite slower. Because of this, refreshing would take time. Okay, but it is very much less expensive in terms of cost, and consumes very less electricity, and it is very small amount of memory. Then what is the access speed of this dynamic random access memory? That means access speed means the data transfer between the dynamic random access memory and between the processor is 50 to 150 nanoseconds. Okay, the data transfer between this dynamic random access memory slot to the processor is access speed is just 50 to 150 seconds. Okay, so this dynamic random access memory is again divided into synchronous dynamic random access memory and the double data rate dynamic random access memory. This concept we will be discussing in our next video. Students, I hope you are able to understand. Please whatever the concepts I have said, what about the capacitors, transistors, how the memory cell is being made, okay, please listen to the video carefully, because the next types of RAM actually depends upon these basics. Okay, I hope your studies are going well. Take care of yourself, students. Thank you.